Thanks for joining us for another edition of Bright Ideas, brought to you by Acuity Brands and Industrial Sage. Today I'm joined by Andrew Bonovic, Director of Indoor Ambient Lighting at Acuity Brands. I want to start by defining high performance lighting. It's a phrase we see everywhere, every lighting manufacturer using. Andrew, what is high performance lighting?
Thank you for having me today, Catherine. So high performance lighting has taken on a wide range of meanings over the last 30 years. In the last 10, since LEDs have come onto the scene, it's really been about power and efficiency. The invention of LED allows us to pack a ton of light efficiently into a small space. And normally, that's really good. We really like being able to do that. It makes lighting a space easier, simpler, and less expensive. But there are also some downsides. In the last few years, we've seen a couple of things start to happen. So first, the differentiation between the leaders and the followers has really gotten a lot smaller. And we've also started to see some of the negatives of LED lighting, putting such a powerful light engine in a small space, have really come to bear. So lots of light is really good until it's glary, and high efficiency is really good until it looks uncomfortable or ugly. So really harnessing that power and using it well is really the tricky part. So now that high efficiency LEDs and high powered LEDs are kind of table stakes for the competition, what we're really seeing in breakthroughs are around quality of light, not necessarily brightness of light.
Okay, and we've talked about experiencing light and experiencing the space with a light fixture. Can you tell me what exactly that means?
Sure. So historically, we would say that someone experiences a light fixture based on the foot candles that those light fixtures spread throughout the space. So we have different activities that take place in our rooms, our offices, our homes, and those activities require a certain amount of foot candles. So we design a wide range of light fixtures to put the foot candles where we need them for our various activities. And that's really kind of how we thought about lighting a space. But over time, those activities have changed. So for example, the introduction of computer monitors. That really messed up a lot of the old T8 troughers that we used to use because you could see those light lines on the computer every time. So we had to invent parabolics, which cut down on that glare, made computer screens easier to use. Then the invention of high output T5 lamps came along, and it was too bright. We had to invent the RT5 trougher. That was a way to disperse that light, give you a nice even illumination, but harness that powerful technology. So the same thing is happening now with LEDs, where the power has kind of overpowered the traditional fixture, and we're having to go about different ways to harness that power. So thankfully, this is something Lithonia and Acuity have done before.
Okay, and so if how much light in the space is not in question, how else would someone interact?
Sure. So if you'll permit me, my team hates when I do this, but I love to use an analogy, a car analogy. So we've all bought a car, certainly we've all ridden in a car, and we all have different things that we think are important kind of on our list of things we want out of a car. So if you went to a car dealer and all you cared about was your efficiency, your miles per gallon, well, you'd probably end up with like a bicycle or a horse, right? Extremely efficient, no gas. And if all you cared about was power, you'd probably end up with a tractor, right? Tons of power, but not really all that practical. So while power and efficiency are clearly important, you don't want a car that gets 1 mile per gallon and you don't want a car that has no power. There are lots of other things that factor in. So how comfortable is the car? How nice does it look? How does it feel when you're in the car? So think about all of those things when you're picking out a light fixture. Don't just go for the highest lumens or the highest efficiency on the spec sheet and assume you're going to get a good looking, comfortable to be around light fixture.
So two buzzwords I hear all the time are glare and visual discomfort. Are they not one and the same?
So that's a great question, and they really are very separate. So glare has traditionally been defined by the obstruction of your vision because of light shining into your eyes. So imagine it's 5 o'clock, you're driving home from work, the sun is setting, and you kind of have to flip your visor down.
Oh, I have a hard problem because I'm short. The visor does not help.
Exactly. So that's what we traditionally think of as glare, right? You're squinting because you're driving by something really bright. But over the last few years, that's transitioned into what's now been known as a unified glare rating. So that is a very quantitative way that we can measure the amount of light that's directed towards an occupant's eyes given a whole space. Now, it's really important to remember a UGR rating is not based only on the fixture. So the same way you would do a lighting layout to generate your foot candles for a room, you do the same thing for a glare rating. So a certain fixture doesn't have an exact glare rating. It all depends on the layout. It depends on the reflectances in the room, the height of the ceilings, and the spacing of the fixtures. So as a whole, low glare rating is better. It's more visually comfortable for the occupant. But one of the things that we have to keep in mind is historically we've developed fixtures that were volumetric. Their light output took up a large volume of space. But one natural consequence of that is you wind up getting light at high angles, which also hits an occupant's eyes. So it's important to remember that volumetric and low UGR are oftentimes battling with each other, and you kind of have to pick one or the other.
That's a really great explanation of glare. So let's look at visual discomfort, because when I feel pain in my eyes when the sun's hitting me or I'm in a room with big bright lights or something, I call that glare. But that's not glare, that's visual discomfort. Can you explain that?
Absolutely, and I think you're on the right track. The way I think of visual discomfort is, what do I think when I look at a fixture or when I spend some time under a fixture? So if I look up and I have to squint because a fixture's really bright, that's really visual discomfort. If my fixture stands out in the room, right, it just looks like a ball of light kind of shining in a dark space, that's visual discomfort. If my light fixture has an unnoticed effect on me, right, that's visual discomfort. So visual comfort is much more qualitative than quantitative, but it has a huge impact on how we experience our light fixtures. So the first big factor is contrast ratio. So contrast ratio is going to be the difference in illumination from the lit portions of a light fixture to the rest of your space.
Okay.
So if you can imagine, you got a lot of light in a very small area. That is going to be really bright compared to its surroundings. But if I can spread that light out over, say, a wide center element lens or even a fully illuminated fixture, that's going to reduce the amount of light that's coming from that actual fixture, and it's going to decrease the difference between that fixture and its surroundings.
Decrease its contrast, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
It blends in and fits in better. To take that to the next level, you can use something called a transition zone, like the bezels around the new Lithonia NVEX. Those actually provide a step-down layer, a transition between the illuminated portion of the fixture and the surrounding space to help step that contrast ratio down gradually. It blends into the ceiling very well. It doesn't stand out and kind of shock you when you look at it. Makes the space much more comfortable.
Okay. So it sounds like a lot of what you're talking about here is not just the design of the fixture, but also the design of the room. So what else goes into creating that visually comfortable space?
So there are a lot of things that you never even really directly see or experience. They go under the skin of a light fixture that also have to do with how you experience the illuminated space. So flicker is a huge factor that we have to make sure we account for. We commonly see in less expensive LED luminaires. So flicker is the unwanted rapid adjustment of light fixture up and down that's caused by the driver in your light fixture. So this can kind of range from just a slight annoyance, your light flickers just a little bit, to possible medical problem that can be brought on things like seizures. So it's something that we definitely want to avoid, and you want to make sure that your fixture has the right driver for the right environment so that you don't experience flicker. The next is going to be color rendering. So you typically see this as CRI, or color rendering index, on your spec sheets. And this has to do with how we perceive the colors in our space.
Okay.
So natural sunlight is a CRI of 100. That's good, perfect light. When we recreate that light via light fixtures, we can't do as good of a job as the sun does in showing the colors and the things around us, but we can get close. So a lot of times you'll see 80 CRI or even 90 CRI for some higher end applications. And that really helps the colors that we experience and that we use in our space stand out and can be really valuable in certain environments like retail, grocery, even hospitality, where you want to show off the colors and the designs in your space. Finally, the last one's color temperature, so CCT. You'll find this on your spec sheets as well, and it kind of has to do with the warmness or the coolness that your lights are giving off. And the most important thing here is to match the color temperature with the activities that the space is being used for. So if it's you're waking up, it's your coffee room at work, you want a cooler temperature. That plays with the circadian rhythms in our bodies and helps us wake up in the morning.
Right.
Think of sunlight at noon is a cool color temperature. If you're looking for a more residential application or a more relaxing, calming application, you're going to go with a warm color temperature. This is reflected by the setting sun. It helps wind our bodies down and calm us down. So we really have to make sure that we're matching the color temperatures of our lights with the activities we're planning on using the space for. And if you really want to take that to the extreme,
There's more.
there's more. You can use a tunable system like our Nlight N-Tune system to be able to change that color temperature over the course of the day or based on the activity you're using to really hone in on those circadian rhythms.
Okay, wow. So LED has made huge differences in lighting overall. You've laid out a bunch of them. A lot of things we've covered here. If you had to boil it down to just a few thoughts about high performance lighting, what do people need to think about?
Absolutely. My biggest takeaway is to remember that high performance lighting is no longer just about lots of lumens or high efficiency. There are lots of other things to factor in to get yourself a good, comfortable, long-term solution. We just want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind when selecting our next light fixture.
Great. Thank you, Andrew, for defining high performance lighting and shedding a little light on that topic. Join us for our next episode. We will look at why ROI should not be your only metric for industrial building renovations.